Jane Unchained, live talk with the incredible Olympic medalist Dotsie Bausch, who is leading a charge in a campaign to get the USDA to ditch dairy. Bring us up to date. I know you've got some breaking news, Dotsie.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So because of the action of the people, including many of your peeps, Jane, who signed the public commentary section that was open a couple of months ago, we were able to get 27% of all total comments into the U.S. dietary guidelines asking for the removal of dairy. So they went and percolated on it all. They then put out a report after they discussed all of their recommendations to the USDA, which one might pause and ask why the dietary guidelines for Americans are in the hands of the United States Department of Agriculture. That is another conversation. So now they are in the hands of the USDA. The USDA put out a report on July 15th. And in that report, they basically said, the dairy was in there 137 times on an 800-page report. And basically what they said in regards to the fact that it's making a third of Americans sick, obviously disproportionately very much affecting people of color, they basically said that that is a future direction. That is a future direction that we will deal with. So now we are in a hard-pressed campaign writing into the USDA, right? Because now it gets more serious. The USDA legally has to listen to the comments that come in. They don't have to do exactly what they say, but they have to listen. They have to read every comment, whereas the Dietary Guidelines Committee did not have to do that. So the USDA has to open up their ears and unclog their mind of all of this industry money and say, let's really look at what's fair and right. And the fact that this is making over a third of Americans sick, and it's disproportionately affects people of color. It's racially unjust to include a food group on the dietary guidelines that's making most of us sick. And according to a recent SNAP report, only 34.9% of Americans identify as white. So the rest of everyone else that's brown or black, Native American, West African, right, Latino descent, everyone, this food group is most likely making them sick in the form of lactose intolerance. So now if everyone goes to switchforgood.org/ban dietary racism, and we've got it in the chat, and puts in the comment pushing the USDA to please remove dairy, then we can make up a large percentage of the comments. And right now, as of today, we are 47% of all total comments. So almost half the people writing in are saying, get rid of dairy.
So let me just get, because this is so important for those watching to be part of this. Dairy is not only a huge contributor to climate change, habitat destruction, wildlife extinction, human world hunger, human disease. You talked about the fact that vast majority of people are allergic to the breast milk of cows, which manifests as all sorts of problems, from acne to sinus conditions to upset stomach, et cetera, et cetera. There's something you can do. Go to switchforgood.org, and here on the banner that's sliding by, it's the exact link, ban dietary racism. And this is what's going to come up, correct? Now break down this letter for us to the USDA and the Health and Human Services Department. For the health of our nation, I urge you to remove dairy as a recommended food group in the upcoming 2025 dietary guidelines. The scientific report of the USDA of the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee states that nutrition is more critical than ever given COVID-19. It's your duty to protect Americans by offering sound dietary recommendations, regardless of race or economic standing. So where is this? And you bring up the point that dairy disproportionately affects people of color, many of whom are lactose intolerant. Where does this letter go if people go and write this? Connect the dots for us that way. Why is it so important for everybody to sign this right now?
So this goes directly into the public commentary section of the USDA and HHS. So they will get this letter directly. And like I mentioned before, it's really important this time because the USDA legally has to consider these comments this time from Americans. They've been very clear that the comments have to be scientifically based. So that's why if you read the pre-populated letter that we've written, it includes all of the citations to the science behind what we're saying. So if you decide to write your own letter, which please feel free to do so, include science backing. Like they're not going to take a letter like, screw you, dairy sucks, love Joe. Right. So it's got to be scientifically based. And the reason, Jane, that we are really we feel it's really important to kind of quote push this angle is because the science behind lactose intolerance is inarguable. It is from the NIH, the National Institute of Health, the percentages of people that are lactose intolerant in America and the side effects that causes and the illnesses that it causes. And so it's not a debate whether this science is correct. Where you do have a fair amount of debate on the other health aspects of dairy, from heart disease to type 2 diabetes, and then, of course, all of the environmental implications that you mentioned. There is an argument on both sides. There isn't an argument. This is the case. This is the facts. They have admitted that these are the facts. They have even sent me emails saying, here are the percentages of people that are lactose intolerant, as if I didn't know where to find it on the NIH. So this is something that's inarguable. And so it's something that we really feel is a very strong angle that they're going to have to highly consider. I will say that in the letter, we have given the USDA an alternative. So we have said you should remove dairy for all of the reasons that we've gone over. As an alternative, we are at least asking, at the very, very minimum, that in the new U.S. dairy guidelines, if they don't remove dairy and they're the recommended 3 servings a day of low-fat dairy, at least they need to inform and educate. They do not have any information on the dietary guidelines about lactose intolerance, what it is, why it's painful, what the symptoms are. If you have it, what the alternative should be. They have one tiny line in there that says, if you don't choose to consume dairy, you can choose soy milk. Okay, no one knows why they shouldn't consume dairy, that no one knows why it's making them sick or what the symptoms are. So we've asked for an extensive amount of education. The food program, right, that the U.S. Dietary Guidelines directs for all of our school children makes up 8 billion meals a year for our school children. And right now, they have to take a milk. So these schools need to have the education and they need to have the alternative, the soy milk as an alternative. So that's the third thing that we're asking, is that you also provide such alternative in schools. So then Charlie can say, oh no, that makes me sick. And so I'm going to choose the soy milk. Right now, they don't have it for them. They say you have to bring it yourself if you want an alternative.
And you sometimes need a doctor's note in some school districts.
Yep. Oh, most of them. Absolutely.
Non-dairy milk.
Right.
When we're starting to realize that to drink the breast milk of another species is really, when you think about it, crazy.
Let's weird.
Check out some of your incredible public service announcements that are all over social media.
I stopped drinking milk
13 years ago.
I stopped dairy
of all kinds.
And a funny thing happened when I stopped.
I stopped having joint pain.
I started having more energy.
More strength.
I was leaner
and cleaner.
My skin cleared up.
I lost 50 pounds.
I stopped drinking milk and started living better.
Listen to your gut
and switch for good. Discover the benefits of living dairy-free at switchforgood.org.
Woo! So tell us about the campaign that is highly produced. Great job, by the way. Dotsie, you're an Olympic medalist, an Olympic cyclist, and now you've become a campaign organizer. How'd you do all this?
It's like the fight of my life. I feel like the Olympic medal was nothing compared to what we're fighting. You're fighting for the exact same thing, Jane. And it's not just me. like it's not just you, your whole team, these extraordinary athletes who one by one, I asked to be a part of this for no dinero, and every single one of them, yes, tell me where to be, when to be, I will do it. So it's just this collective energy, this collective fight, this just collective brilliance by these athletes and all these people in this movement that are standing up and saying, we want to tell the truth, right? These athletes, we want to tell the truth. We don't use breast milk of cows to recover from workouts or to be elite athletes. It's ridiculous.
Let's look at another one of your public service announcements, and then we'll talk about some of the top athletes in the world who have joined you to ditch dairy.
Let us show you how.
To keep our oceans thriving.
To save species from extinction. Okay, cut.
You are
Hungry. They were like, what is wrong with your stomach? I was like, roar! Fight climate change. It's so bad.
Cheese gives me gas.
Hard body?
Our bodies. Our bodies.
The whole line again?
No, just
our bodies.
We're just
Sorry.
Just saying that word. Yeah.
So fun.
You have to make a good blooper video from every shoot, right?
A good blooper video. So who are these top athletes who have joined you? Because we know now with the film The Game Changers, with What the Health, with a lot of information, books, movies, documentaries, the word's out. To ditch dairy. But who are these folks who joined you?
Yes. Okay. So, well, the girl in the last frame that was Louis was trying to get to say our bodies, and she thought he said hard bodies. That is probably one of the top soccer defenders of all time in the United States. That's Heather Mitch. She has 3 Olympic gold medals. So she went to the Olympics 2004, 2008, 2012, and brought home gold in soccer all 3 of those times. So just, mind blowing. I can just barely imagine going to 1 Olympics, which I did, but 3 is just like, oh my God. And then we also have Georges Larocque, right? The NHL player who he also was the translation voice for Earthlings. For those of you that for in French, right? Because he's French Canadian, so he's been an amazing animal activist for ages. Derek Morgan, Tennessee Titans player, is in there. Chase Utley, arguably one of the best second basemen of all time, was in the MLB for I think 16 years. In the last 5 years of his career, he got dairy out, and just like he says in the PSA, he just got rid of all joint pain, all inflammation. And he's one of the oldest players to have, left the game on top because he ditched dairy.
Can you explain that? Because so many people say, I've got to take dairy for calcium because I've got osteoporosis, or I don't want to get osteoporosis, when actually it's the opposite, which I think is really important. And by the way, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Olympic medalist Dotsie Bausch, the campaign leader, the quarterback, or whatever sports metaphor you want to use for Switch for Good, which is currently pleading with the USDA and Health and Human Services to ditch dairy from its dietary guidelines for very good reason. So this is just one of the reasons. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, all of the countries that have the highest rates of osteoporosis have the highest rates of dairy consumption. So, that's certainly something to ponder. But I think it's just so important for everybody to recognize, and this is something that we wrote into the USDA, that these nutrients, of course there's nutrients in cow's milk. It's breast milk for a baby cow. There better be loads of nutrients. So of course there's calcium and there's magnesium, there's potassium, there's some protein. Right, absolutely. But these nutrients are all found in multiple sources of other foods. So the dairy industry has this believing like cow's milk is the only source of calcium, which is just laughable when you say that out loud. No, of course not. Calcium is rich in dark leafy greens. It's rich in almonds. It's rich in tahini, which are sesame seeds. It's rich in all sorts of different plant foods. It's also about 50% more bioavailable in plant foods than it is in dairy foods, which means your body absorbs more of it. So that's pretty important. So it's just knowing and doing your research. And I think at the end of the day, just kind of, we need to wake up a little bit and be more critical thinkers and ask more questions, and then say, okay, I need my calcium. Hey, wait a minute. There might be other sources of calcium out there in the world. And of course there are. So you get plenty of calcium if you ditch the dairy. It's highly inflammatory because there's multiple molecules in it that our body doesn't recognize because it's for a baby cow. So because of those molecules, and because of the not our body not being able to recognize it, whenever that happens, our body mounts a defense system over if it's something that it doesn't recognize. And that always comes in the form of inflammation, right? Because your body is defending itself, and it causes inflammation, and chronic inflammation, which is what happens when you eat animal foods over many years, is the precipitous to so many of the diseases that are killing us in America today.
Absolutely. Heart disease, up until COVID-19, was a leading killer, killing 1 out of every 4 Americans. It's still killing. It's the leading killer right after COVID-19, which, by the way, is a zoonotic disease that jumped from animals to humans. So let's break it down, what people can do, because this truly would revolutionize the world. By the way, dairy is currently in crisis because kids are not in school and they're not being force-fed the breast milk of cows. We're not living in the old leave it to beaver, father knows best, drink a giant glass of milk, TV stereotyping anymore. Kids today are more likely to go for a green juice than a giant glass of milk. The way they eat has changed. It's not so much cereal with a bunch of milk. There's more like protein bars and various other things that kids eat. Yeah. So dairy is in crisis. Plant-based milks during COVID-19 are being increasingly adopted by consumers. They last longer. I mean, we all know you can get non-refrigerated soy milk and keep it in the back room until you need it. So it lasts longer because it's not coming out of an animal. It's coming out
of a cute little bean.
Yeah, it's coming out of a cute little bean. So one of the reasons I personally believe that the administration is pushing schools is because if the schools remain remote for the protection of children during a pandemic that has killed 150,000 Americans, they can't be force-fed milk. Cow's milk. So there's so much politics. The U.S. government buys up so much milk and dairy products to force feed it to prisons, institutions, and school kids, to prop up the industry that the consumers are increasingly rejecting. And so you have things like cheese caves that the government keeps and giant blocks of cheese that they're delivering to people, even though it's clearly packed with cholesterol, which is a leading contributor to plaque, which causes heart disease. When are the powers that be, who are not completely in the pocket of industry, going to stand up? Mm-hmm. I know Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren have now said, we're going to eliminate concentrated animal feeding operations. Here's a bill. 2040 is a long time from now, but at least they're getting the ball rolling. Yeah. But, so often this has been a bipartisan denial. Bipartisan. Oh, yeah, we need to get nutrition to our kids, and then feeding them all this food that is actually making them, in the words of a great documentary, sick, fat, and nearly dead. Mm-hmm. Now that we're seeing that it's becoming more of a controversial issue, do you think, not to talk too much politics, but everything's politics in DC, that some of these, for example, progressive politicians can stand up and say, like Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren, no, this isn't something that we should automatically just knee jerk. Yes, let's just dump more dairy on school kids.
Yeah, and I think the education has to continue. So one thing, to answer your question, this is one of those times when we really do have a voice of the people. They have to listen to what we're saying. And if this many people are saying this is making us fat, sick, and nearly dead, that we want something to change here. And secondly, it will change eventually on the Hill if we're loud enough and we're truthful enough and we're sharing the education. And that's our next step after this period of time, because then we have to pause and wait for the dietary guidelines to come out in January, which will be filing suit if they don't do at least the alternatives that I suggested.
Let me break it down, because you're doing something that's rather complicated, and I just want people to understand point A, point B, point C. If you could just break it down really simply as to why this letter, which is on switchforgood.org /ban-dietary-racism. The hyperlink is right there, the link at the bottom of the screen, or you could just go to Switch for Good and it leads you right there. Why is it so crucial for people to sign this? Just break it down simply what the process is.
So what happens every 5 years is the government reviews dietary guidelines for Americans. And what they do every 5 years is the HHS and the Center for Nutrition Policy and the USDA, they elect, or that's not the right word, they just say, here's our committee. They just grab different people that have experiences in food and food policy, mostly from the industry, I will say. Not cool, but that's the case. And they put them together and they say, okay, you're the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee for about a year and a half as you review all of the evidence of what we should make new and the changes we should make to the next dietary guidelines. So that happened from the beginning of last year until now. It was in the hands of the committee, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee. They reviewed all of the research, everything that they thought that they deemed necessary to review. They had subcommittees, right? There's a shellfish committee, and there's a saturated fat committee, and there's a processed sugar committee. You know, there's all these different subcommittees, and they basically put their entire recommendation into a package and handed it over to the USDA about 6 weeks ago. Then the USDA came out with this report, which basically is their review of the committee's review. That's what came out July 15th. Now there's another period of time where Americans can speak up.
We, the anti-dairy folks, the dairy-free folks, got something in that report that was submitted to the USDA.
Right. They definitely made a reference to it, right? Which they never have before, because we put forth 27% of the comments before. So, right, almost a third that said we don't want dairy. So they referenced it, exactly what we were asking for, but they said that's for future direction. We'll look at that in the future. And they were put in July 15th in the report, which you can go download the 800-page report right from the USDA website. They called it future. That's something they're going to consider in the future. So now we have this period of time where we speak directly to the USDA. That's why this is important. That's why this letter is important, where we say, we reference that in this letter. This is not a future direction. Only 34% of people identify as white in America. So all of these other people, this food is making sick from about 75 to 95% of them. This is happening right now.
Well, yeah, and I would personally argue that it's not good for anybody. Nobody's cow.
Right. Exactly. Right. But
if you talk, but I mean, in general, there's no reason for anybody, no matter what their race or ethnicity, to drink the breast milk of cows. It's a leading contributor to heart disease. It kills 1 out of every 4 people, and that includes plenty of white people.
Yes, 1,000%. But the reason we're going in this direction is because they have science that will argue that. I am with you, but they have science will argue that. There's no argument. These are the numbers. These are the numbers from them, from the National Institute of Health, that they have sent to us, that we agree with, that it's 36%. So it's like,
let me say this. You're saying that there are scientists in the government that already agree that the vast majority of Americans are officially allergic to dairy.
Have an intolerance. So a dairy allergy is completely different than intolerance. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So that's saying this is something we're going to consider in the future.
I know. That's why you got to write in, because we got to speak to them and say, no, this is a now problem. This is right now. This is this dietary guidelines, because we won't have new ones for another 5 years, right? They don't do it every year. So we have a whole other 5 years to wait.
Why they say future is that those are the political forces, the lobbyists, that get in there and they fund the politicians, and on both sides of the aisle, frankly, and they tell them, here's what you need to do. We can't let this happen. It's going to hurt our industry. Look, we're living in a time where they're describing slaughterhouses as essential. You know, and I know, neither of us participate in any product that is produced by a slaughterhouse that kills animals. Here we are, statistically healthier than the general population. You're an Olympic athlete. You've got all of these Olympic athletes who are on your campaign. So right there, that is a complete falsehood. Eating animals is not essential. In fact, it's essentially killing us. So your campaign is so important. Guys and gals, it's very simple. Go to Switch for Good. Look for Ban Dietary Racism, or just copy that link, write it down, switchforgood.org/ban-dietary-racism. The link is right there. The link is also in the comment section. You're going to come upon this. Fill it out. If you want to write your own personalized letter, have a field day. But all you need to do is fill this out. It takes 5 seconds. You send it, and we take control of our lives. Do we really want to be indentured servants to lobbyists who could care less and are all about making these incredibly wealthy conglomerates just even richer for the 0.1% of Americans who continue to thrive in this economy while everybody else is struggling? No. Take the power back. Ditch dairy. Write this letter. Share this out. Final thoughts, Dotsie. You are extraordinary.
Yeah, thanks. And again, it's just all of us, right? Just doing all the work that we can. It's really important to remember that the government bails out big business all the time. They bailed out Pizza Hut a few years ago, and that was the stuffed crust cheese pizza commercials that came out. That was the government bailing out Pizza Hut, and it is documented very clearly in The Cheese Trap that Dr. Neil Bernard wrote. So I would suggest that book if you want to go even deeper into understanding all the embeddedness that you and I are talking about right now. But yeah, I just love that we have the ability to speak up and we have a voice. So speak up, everyone.
Absolutely. And Dotsie, your campaign, Switch for Good, is genius. Any way that we can help you, we are there. We want the children of America to be healthy. We're not doing this because we get a commission every time somebody drinks a glass of oat milk.
No, exactly.
This is a campaign because we want kids to be healthy. And you can look around, you watch old movies, you see how much fitter the children are in the background shots. We've got a terrible obesity crisis amongst kids. That's part of the dairy issue too. It's contributing to obesity. I mean, dairy is designed to fatten up calves to hundreds of pounds in a very short period of time. It's also packed with hormones. It's not supposed to be packed with antibiotics, but antibiotics filter through. Most of the antibiotics produced are fed to farm animals. So for so many reasons, we need to ditch dairy and evolve. This is the 21st century. Thank you, Dotsie Bausch. Keep us posted. When will we know? When will we find out?
Mid-January, when the dietary guidelines come out. Yeah, we got a little bit of time, but we'll be fighting all the way and working with the politicians up until that period of time with the caucuses. So that's one other aspect of kind of what we're doing internally. But yeah, that's the next time that we'll hear from the USDA.
And just to clarify one last thing. So what's the deadline for submitting these comments?
Oh, yeah, 15 days. It is August 13th. Yes, we just have 15 days to go. So
okay,
now's the time.
Now's the time. Mm-hmm. Now, in the previous tranche of commentary, you achieved about a third of all comments, did you say?
Almost a third, 27.9% or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're at 47 right now. 47, almost 50% of the comments are saying, get rid of this food group for humans.
47% of all comments submitted. We're talking about this. We are so close, people. I can't think of anything more important to do for the survival of our species and our planet. Thank you, Dotsie Bausch.
Thanks for all you do, Jane. Thank you so much.
Right back.
I always have so much fun with you.
All right.
And thanks, everyone. Go sign.
Let's do it. Ditch dairy.